It is our great honor at the Washington State Construction Center of Excellence, also known as the CCE, to host this series in partnership with the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs. I'm Christina Rupp, Director of the CCE. We pause today to remember and honor those who have tragically lost their lives to suicide within the construction industry in Washington State. The loss of each individual is a profound reminder of the immense challenges faced by workers in this field. The construction industry is grappling with alarmingly high suicide rates. Recent statistics from the CDC and NBC News reveal that on average, there are approximately 5,500 suicides each year among construction workers. In 2022 alone, an estimated 6,000 construction workers died by suicide, reflecting the significant mental health struggles within this profession. These numbers underscore a troubling trend, with the rate of suicide among male construction workers being 75% higher than that of men in the general population. This stark reality highlights an urgent need for increased mental health support and intervention within the industry. In response to this critical issue, the Washington State Construction Center of Excellence is committed to being a part of the solution. In the coming months, we will be offering more webinars to raise awareness, provide resources, and foster open dialogue about mental health in the construction industry. It is our hope that through these efforts, we can support those who are struggling and work together to create a safer, more supportive environment for all construction workers. We thank you for taking the time to join us today. To learn more about our center and upcoming events and to join our mailing lists, please visit our website at www.constructioncoe.com. And my gratitude to our generous co-host for today's session, Jennifer Fritzl, Regional Outreach Coordinator for OFCCP, and Hannah Patterson, Compliance Assistant Specialist for OSHA. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Christina, and I very much appreciate those generous, kind words to this important discussions. And thank you for hosting Hannah and I. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jennifer Fritzl. I'm the Regional Outreach Coordinator with the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, also known as OFCCP, where I assist with the outreach and stakeholder engagements throughout the Pacific region. So just a quick overview of my agency before I turn it over to Hannah, if that's okay. OFCCP is a civil rights enforcement agency with jurisdiction over federal contractors and subcontractors who do business with the federal government. We enforce the Executive Order 11246, Vietnam-era Veterans Readjustment Assistance Act, also known as VEVRA, and Section 503 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, all of which prohibit federal contractors and subcontractors from discriminating against protected classes under these regulations. Not only does OFCCP assist with compliance and enforcement for these regulations for federal contractors, the agency also offers workplace protections and education to the workers. And it's important to Department of Labor to ensure workers understand their rights under these laws and the knowledge to report workplace discrimination and/or the harassment. I'll share some links to OFCCP's worker fact sheets that are available online, as well as other contractor resources available to the public. OFCCP also has the Mega Construction Project Program Initiative, where our goal is to uplift economic opportunities in the construction trades industry. And as many of you might be aware already, OFCCP has designated a mega project located in Sumas, Washington. And in support of this project, along with the others, CCE and OFCCP, we have partnered together to uplift these important discussions that impact the construction trades workforce. Our goal is to be inclusive and to aim to be a reliable resource for the workers, the unions, the contractors, and the many other organizations that are participating on these projects. So if you're here today, thank you. And if you're participating in these efforts, thank you so much. It's really important to us, these economic opportunities that arise from the mega construction projects. Thank you again for attending today's discussion. I would like to now introduce you to my esteemed colleague, Hannah Patterson, from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Hannah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Esteemed, I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. And quickly, I'd just like to say thank you to the Washington State Construction Center of Excellence and the U.S. Department of Labor OFCCP office for inviting me to join the conversation today. My name is Hannah, as they said, and I work for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I'm a compliance assistance specialist, and you can find my contact on the screen. And today we'll be speaking about suicide prevention in the construction industry. So bear with me with my controls here. So this is the big picture view of my job history. I have strengths and limitations like anyone else discussing mental health, and like anybody else in your workplace, I suspect they're not going to be a medical professional. And I'm sharing these details about my non-medical background because it's important to decrease the hesitation to talk about suicide prevention and suicide awareness, because a lot of people have fear of saying the wrong thing or potentially putting suicidal ideations into people's minds that wasn't there prior. However, that's not what's going to happen if we talk about mental health in the workplace. And for many reasons, the coworker may be the person that's having the conversation with somebody in a crisis. So the first step to increasing the likelihood that a person's gonna seek help is talking about mental health, so we can reduce the stigma and increase our community. So today I am going to be following a guide from the OSHA handout that is included in the handouts that are on the invite. And I wanted to say that suicide is unpredictable, but there's backed trainings that are research backed, and they can aid in the prevention of suicide. The guide that I'm following is called The Role of Employers in Preventing Suicide, and it has a few strategies to work with in the workplace. And the first strategy is to set the tone. The American with Disabilities Act, or ADA, protects employees with mental health conditions from workplace discrimination, harassment. It provides privacy rights and protects against refusal of reasonable accommodations. So let's talk about some examples of not setting the tone in the office. In 2018 in Wyoming, there was a manufacturer company that agreed to pay $75,000 to settle the ADA lawsuit in which an employee, a veteran with post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, was harassed by his supervisor, who referred to him as psycho to his coworkers and made comments about Psycho Thursday, because this is the day of the week that the employee attended their therapy sessions for PTSD. When the harassment became intolerable, the employee was forced to quit to avoid future abuse. Another example of not setting the tone in the office was in 2019 in New Hampshire. A costume realtor agreed to pay $155,000 to settle this ADA failure to hire lawsuit. The job applicant, a qualified individual with a disability on the autism spectrum, severe anxiety, required a job coach as a reasonable accommodation for her disability. And during the applicant's job interview, the hiring manager told the job coach present at the interview that they had previously had bad experiences hiring applicants who required job coaches. And the applicant and the job coach explained to the hiring manager that the job applicant had been successful shadowing others in previous retail jobs, but the hiring manager was unmoved. And the hiring manager tried to cut the interview short by telling the job coach in a patronizing tone, "Thanks for bringing her here, but the person that encouraged you to apply would have hired anybody, even an ant. So as you can see, that's not what we call setting the tone. And if you have any questions about ADA compliance when it comes to mental health conditions in the workplace, please contact the EEOC, which is the contact on the screen now. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is slow. Okay, so since mental health is discussed everywhere, why are we talking about it for the construction industry? Christina talked about a little bit in the beginning of the presentation, but if we're taking a look at the statistics, when you compare construction workers to the overall suicide rates by sex in the civilian working population in the recent years, you see that the construction workforce has more suicides than the average national workforce. So it's double for males in the construction industry than it is in the average national workforce to have suicide at work. So that's why we're talking about it. And then you may ask yourself, why? Why is there more risk for construction workers of suicide ideation and suicide attempts? And the reason is not all people who attempt to commit suicide have a mental health disorder. And some of the contributing factors are construction specific stresses. Male dominated workforces, there's this fear of a perceived weakness, and that makes male dominated workforces like this the least likely to seek help on their own. There's alcohol and substance abuse, travel, temporary or contract labor leading to language barriers, worrying about a family back home, lack of information on the healthcare system, and a loss of social network. I don't know about anybody on this call, but I've done maritime construction, and I was flown out to Singapore and Guam. And if I had to go to the hospital, we had an emergency response plan, but mental health wasn't on my mind at the time. So that does come into play with construction. Working long and abnormal hours, 12, 14, 16-hour days, chronic pain, debt or a lack of regular job securities causing anxiety and instability, access to lethal means, such as a construction site bridge or roofs. When an employee feels that they must do something they would not normally do because they see no other way out or no other way to meet their goals. Or there's a workforce skill shortage resulting in laborers working overtime to complete projects. It creates this combination that results in a pressure cooker atmosphere, and it can overwhelm employees when all these add up. So ask yourself, are these qualities true for your workplace? So those are the risks. What are the warning signs? You may notice these in a coworker. These are the warning signs that should prompt a friendly discussion about stress, if anything is bothering them, if there's anything you can do. How many times have you said, how are you? And someone says, I'm okay, or I'm hanging in there, and you left it at that, and you kept moving on with your agenda items. Or maybe your colleague had something like, oh, I'm so stressed. And you responded with, sorry to hear that, or I'm here for you. And then you moved on to the task or the discussion. But you didn't follow up to ask how they were doing later on. And you didn't take the 5 to 10 minutes during the call or the meeting to see what they're actually stressed about. Saying things like, I know this is a lot, or it's just how it is around here, or you'll get used to it. It's meaningless. They're cliches, and they communicate to your colleague that you're not interested in really being there to talk things through with them. So, of course, if somebody's having a difficult day, it doesn't mean that there's a serious issue or a crisis or an emergency, but these bad days, just like those risks, can accumulate and they build up. And without receiving or perceiving the support is available at work, it can start to adversely affect their mental health. So relying on surface level supportive messages and neglecting to spend quality time speaking with our peers about how they're really doing can be a missed opportunity to help colleagues reduce stress before reaching that point of crisis. With that being said, there are 3 warning signs that should prompt immediately calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline with your coworker, and that's talking about wanting to die, looking for ways to kill oneself, or talking about feeling like there's no reason to live. Obviously, those are suicidal ideations, and it should prompt a call immediately to 988. I put this slide in here on my own preferences, and it's not because I'm against guns at all. It's because you can see from the bar chart there that from 2011 to 2001, half the suicides that were committed in America were done by gun. So I feel that if there are warning signs, a gun could be considered an extra risk. It could be on the list of risks. So it's something to look out for as well with your coworkers. If you know that they have warning signs and they also own a gun, it could be an additional risk. Attempters that take pills or inhale car exhaust or use razors have some time to reconsider mid-attempt. They might be able to summon help and be rescued. The method itself could fail even in the absence of rescue. Even many hangings can stop mid-attempt because the hanging suicides are partial suspensions, meaning that the person can release the pressure if they change their mind. However, with a firearm, 85% of the time, there's no turning back. Okay, so back to the guidance. We talked about strategy 1, which is setting the tone. Strategy 2 is to implement the policies and procedures that support suicide prevention and awareness. We all know about the EAP, but did you know that the EAP could be a voluntary or formal referral? A formal referral to the EAP is akin to an accommodation with a disciplinary action held in abeyance, pending cooperation and follow through with the EAP recommendations. And most EAPs have a variety of programs to get employees back to doing what they normally are capable of. But if you don't have an EAP, there's still other resources available. Medical benefits, they're not required to have mental health coverage, but most large companies do have that. If you don't have that, 988. It's not just for suicide prevention. It's also for any other type of crisis. It could be substance use, it could be just mental health, or if you're worried about a loved one, you can call for advice from 988. There's a link there for the Mental Health America affiliate page. They offer free or low-cost community counseling services. So something outside of work potentially. I personally have used online forums and support groups. And there's one called Clubhouse. It's a phone app, and you can look up different, they're like forums. You can go on there and look up different groups that you identify with, say like Sober in Seattle or something like that. And you can find a community that way. Or help resources like books. It is appropriate to buy a coworker a book for a holiday, something like that, a self-help book. There's books called Quit Lit, and that's quit literature for short. This Naked Mind is one for sobriety that a lot of people know about. The Body Keeps the Score is one for PTSD that a lot of people know about. Things like that, it's very appropriate to give a coworker if you recommend it, if you like it. And it starts the conversation, which is what it's all about. Okay, strategy 3, be prepared. Okay. The warning signs can indicate that the person may benefit from taking steps to get help with the support of some good resources or recommendations, or just having a friendly coworker to vent to. Don't pry into your coworker's personal life, but allow them to share what they want you to know. You can ask questions about how they're doing at work to start the conversation. Like, do you feel like you're a good fit for the project? Do you like working in your department? If it's obviously beyond a simple conversation, ask a more direct question about how they're coping with life right now. Such as you can say, how bad is your stress level been lately? Or have you been feeling sad? Any talk about suicidal ideation should prompt a medical emergency situation. You can be discreet and respectful while letting the person know that you can't keep a secret that they feel this way because they need a professional to help them get back to feeling themselves again. So gauge how your coworker's doing based on the conversation you're having. Take the time to talk to your peers on a human level and just see how they're doing and go from there. They could just need to vent. They could need some resources. They could have a real crisis on their hands, and you could make all the difference. So the best thing to do if they are having SI thoughts, suicidal ideation thoughts, is to either call 988 with them or take them to a hospital if you can. So part of being prepared, which is step number 3, is to give supervisors a chance to practice what they would say to a coworker if it seemed like they had some warning signs. So OSHA recommends that you practice like the example that you see on the screen with a group of people that you work with during a training session, because it can be intimidating asking your coworker about their feelings, especially at a construction site. And the more you practice, the easier to talk about mental health will be. Okay, the final strategy is to share resources as much as possible. It's just me talking to you. It's you talking to them. These are some resources that you can share. Teach and remind employees that there is a cultural resistance to well-intentioned efforts towards mental health, and teach all levels of the organization how to support employees and recognize the signs of stress and mental health issues by providing handouts like the one attached. Starting from the left at the first block, there's a PDF for supervisor conversations. The second box is for senior manager conversations, which has examples of emails you can send out to a group of people. And the third box is how to address the aftermath of a suicide at work. And then the bottom rows is some posters that you could print out and put around to keep the conversation going, to reduce the stigma, and to let people know that they can talk about mental health here. So I'll close today by saying that suicides are just the tip of the iceberg. There were 46,412 suicides among adults in 2021. And for every suicide death, there were about 3 hospitalizations for self-harm, 8 non-fatal emergency department visits related to suicide, 38 self-reported suicide attempts, and 265 people who seriously considered suicide in the past year. It's nationwide numbers, but it's representative of all people that deal with this. It's what you see, but there's more underneath. So being dedicated to the change and the way people see mental illness at all levels of society, if not for yourself, advocate for those who struggle in silence. Thank you for having me.
Hannah, thank you so much for being with us today. And I definitely wanted to turn it over to everyone in attendance. If you have any questions that you would like the presentation team to address.
I'll add something, Christina, and thank you so much, Hannah. This is very important, and your resources are excellent. Going through some of those resource guides, they're very impressive, and I hope that are helpful to all of you in attendance today. I think you had mentioned this at the beginning, Christina, but just for those that are tuning in a little bit later, all of the QR codes and the presentation that Hannah presented is available in the Zoom lobby. And so you do have access to those resources. It is open to share. And if we can be of assistance for future programming or additional training that's necessary, let us know. Reach out to myself, Christina, Hannah. We want to be a resource to you all and uplift this important conversation.
Oh, are you there? Hello?
Hi, Mike.
Hey, for those that don't know what the Zoom lobby is, where can I find that? We're Teams. We do Teams. I don't do Zoom very often.
Okay, so when you joined the event, there should have been a general room, but I'll put the link back into the chat on how you get into the Zoom lobby. And
Okay.
if you want, you can just copy and paste that link, Mike.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Also, normally everybody, I do compliance assistance for occupational safety and health, and mental health has just been explored by OSHA in the last decade, as well as I think more in the public media and other agencies. So if you have any questions about any other safety regulations, if you need any other resources, you can reach out to me because that's what I do. I do outreach, I don't do enforcement. So you're welcome to contact me directly.
Thanks, Hannah. We
You're
always
welcome.
need that as contractors, a little help.
Yeah, I get public questions every day. I think somebody asked me about the new silica rule today, so. Well, all right. Shall we wrap it up, Jennifer?
I have a little plug if you guys don't mind. Hannah, I'm presenting on suicide prevention at the governor's conference in Washington State next week. I work for Apollo Mechanical, and we started a program in about 2019 and have been pretty successful. We did lose 3 of our employees this year to suicide, so we are continuing to work and strive not to do that. But we have about 3,200 employees across the nation now, and all of our safety team and other people that volunteer are instructors on our suicide prevention program. So it is effective. It does not take a lot of resources to do. We tie it in with our first aid CPR training. So we just think of it as a CPR first aid training for the soul instead of wounds. And we just incorporated into that program, and it just added another hour or so to our first aid CPR training. So I appreciate the conversation, and I think it is catching momentum, but any of you guys are going to the governor's conference, drop in and I'll show you how Apollo does it.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much for saying that. I think that's the struggle for a lot of companies. They just don't know where to start when it comes to something like this. It seems like it needs to be all or nothing. Like I need to have an established program, or I need to work to make an established program because I don't know what to do. But really, it's just even talking to people in the morning, seeing what they look like, seeing if they look prepared for the day, and getting to know people on a more personal level, and bringing up the conversation. It's just starting the conversation. You don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah, and we found a resource in Washington that's really helped us out that I'll share at the conference that, you know, if they need some help, we have some resources that was our biggest challenge was when you identify someone that needs some help, then what does that next step look like? And with the doctors and everyone so busy, we reached out to a couple of private companies that I call them employee advocates. So I had cancer a couple of years ago, and they said the cancer word, right? My bandwidth shrunk to 0, and I had this employee advocate named Hector, and Hector took care of everything. He took me where the doctors were and blah, blah, blah. So we went down that path at Apollo, and we have an employee advocate that we hire that helps, particularly the unions, because the EAP programs are so different based on what union you work for. And we work with about 27 different unions. So they need help navigating that, right? So there's some great resources in Washington State that we've used, and really want to share that with people at the conference, that there's help and it's cost effective and it's way worth the return on investment.
And it sounds like your company really has their game together. They really know what they're doing there with the advocate and all that. But even if you're somebody that's with a small company, if you're not expected to handle this or, you know, prevent suicide. You're just expected to help if somebody is having an issue. So just calling 988, I mean, that's literally what they're there for. So calling them and getting professional advice from them can give you the next step forward if you don't have like established programs like that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, we consider it kind of like first aid, right? You're there to sustain life long enough to get a professional involved. It's like if you're doing CPR or something. We're not professionals, that's for sure.
Yep.
Those
And
involved.
that's why I put my job history there. I'm not a professional when it comes to suicide prevention either, but the people that you're having the conversation with aren't gonna be.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, I thank you all as always for joining us and tuning in, and we will see you back in October, where on October 21st, same time, we'll talk about prohibiting pay secrecy policies and prevailing wages. Thank you all so much for being part of this conversation. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Christina, Hannah.
Thank you.